G'day mate. This is going to be a video that I am super passionate about. And the topic that I am super passionate about when it comes to wakeboarding is going massive. Now, a little quick narrative. When I first started to get into the wakeboard game, I was sitting on a beach. I used to be a water skier. I used to love it. It was all about going on two skis and then dropping a ski and then slalom, deep water start, which I was terrible at. Dry start off the beach. I used to love water skiing. And then one day I was sitting there and I saw this boat go past. And the boat had this high pole on it, and there was guys who were wakeboarding. And I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't know a huge amount, and I wasn't in a position to go and just, buy a board straight away. Anyway, they went out for a ride and they were just next level. Like, these guys were just loading the line up, just absolutely sending it and boosting off this wake, which back when I first saw it, it was probably a little bit mediocre. But when I first saw this, it was just mind-blowing about how big these guys were going. And I just love the fact that they were just loading the line up, cutting like nothing else, and just sending things way into the flats. So I'm going to teach you how to go massive. Now, there's a few things that you're going to need to do beforehand, and I am a big believer in these things. And if you don't have this sort of foundation, there's no way you're going to be able to go massive. You just can't do it. It's pretty much impossible. So number one is strength training. It is key. You have to be doing what you can to try and make your body and your legs in particular and your core as strong as it possibly can be. If you're a part-timer who just goes out on the weekend and just has a little bit of a jam, bit of a slash around, a couple of little 180s, that's fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but you're not going to be able to go massive. Like, I'm talking stuff into the flats. Full disclaimer, I'm not talking about myself here. I'd like to think I go massive and just load the line. There's so much more that I could do. I could go far bigger than what I currently do, but I need to get better myself. So you have to be dedicated. So how do you get strength training for wakeboarding? What do you do? What can you do? What should you do? A couple of things that I've done in the past. Sprint training. Now, if you are a fast runner, you'll be amazed at how those legs can be transferred over to going massive on a wakeboard. Little thing that I used to do, go to a street, find a nice stretch, a nice straight part of just an average everyday street. And what you do is you will pretty much do strength running along that footpath. So think of the power poles or the light poles or anything. Try and find a stretch that's about 1 kilometer long and it's just a straight. And what you're going to do is you're going to start at a lamppost or a power pole and you're going to jog to the next one. And then you're going to sprint from that one to the next one and then go back to a jog and then sprint from the next pole to the next one. You get the idea. But the more fast and the more strength you can put into your legs, the easier it's going to be for going massive. Tip number 2, get yourself into the gym. Now, I'm not saying you have to go out and buy a gym membership because I don't have one. I actually don't believe in them. I think that you can do anything outside of a gym for free. Or go and find yourself something to get your legs stronger, whether it's squats, whether it's free weights, whether it's a bar or something that you can do some sort of squats with. Get a backpack, fill it with bricks, fill it with dumbbells, fill it with anything, and get yourself into a habit or a good routine of doing squats. Okay? Long story short, the more strength you can put into your legs, the better you can condition yourself, the higher you will go, the better you will be, the easier it will be for recovery as well. And I've probably noticed as well, as I've gotten older, that my body takes a little bit longer to recover. I used to be pretty much like a rubber band. I used to be bulletproof, basically. You could take the hugest of bales, you could land out in the flats, do whatever, wake up the next morning, and you're sweet. And you can get on the bike, go for a run, no dramas. Nowadays, since I've hit the 30s, I wake up in the next morning and a bit creaky. You got to actually try and be a little bit more diligent about things. You got to stretch a little bit more, and it's a hard habit to get into, but it pays off massively in the long run. Okay, so pushing that strength stuff to the side, I want to talk more about the technique on the water, the boat speed, the rope length, what you're doing with the board, etc., etc. Okay, so the boat speed. Most of the time I'm going about 22 mile an hour, which is probably slower than your average rider, which is not a bad thing, but I just find it more comfortable when I load the line up massively if I'm just going that little bit slower, and I kind of feel like I'm in a little bit more control. Boat speed, it's sort of your personal preference. There's no real set speed that is recommended or a good idea to do when it comes to trying to go as massive as you possibly can. Rope length. I ride at 70 feet. A lot of people will probably ride at 75 feet. Quite a few people who are starting out would be riding at about 65 feet. I find 70 feet just right. Again, I probably could go back a little bit, but I like to be able to have the opportunity to go into the flats a little bit easier, if that makes sense. Now, technique-wise, let's get down to business, because I know that there are a lot of people who just want to go massive on a wakeboard, and don't blame you. Anyway, so starting out, now this is key. You're going to try and cut out pretty much as far as you possibly can. So get that handle, lock it on your hips. Okay? You almost want to start, now normally if you remember my videos, you start on the right hand side of the wake and then you just lean against the rope. This one I'm going to tell you, it's going to be slightly different. You want to start maybe 3 meters away from the right hand side of the wake. And what you're going to do is you're going to glide into that wake, and you're going to use the wake as kind of like it's like your trigger. It's like your starting ramp. So edge towards it, and then what you want to do is you want to do almost like this big arcing turn on the face of the wake. The reason why you do this is because this gives you momentum, and it will give you speed to get out as far as you possibly can. So you glide back to the wake, do your big arching turn on the face of the wake, and then you just want to go full send, like full noise, boosting it out as far as you possibly can, keeping that handle right on your hips, leaning on your toes. And what you do is when you get to a point where you think you've gone as far as you can, you're wrong. You can go another 2 meters. I can guarantee it. You gotta really get the momentum, and that thing with the turning on the face of the wake and the speed that you build from that, you'll always be able to push down a little bit further. When you get to the point where you think you've gone as far as you possibly can, that dropping the hand and letting the fins do their work, the board channel, the line tension sort itself out, that is absolutely key on this. And the best way to do that is to let it out and let your arm go out straight, because that will really emphasize your board doing the right things, and it will really emphasize the rope or the line tension fixing itself basically. Once you're there, you're going to get yourself psyched up, because you are going to try and go as massive as you possibly can. You've really got to get yourself in the zone for this one. Sorry, I should probably calm down a little bit, but I'm just so excited about the fact that, you know, people want to go massive on a wakeboard. Anyway, loading the line. Here we go. So what you want to do is you don't want to have the rope so close to you. You want to almost have it out. Most of the time when I do it, I almost have straight hands. You'll remember quite a few times I've spoken about the fact that I'll often ride with 2 hands together. For this one, you still can do that, but it's also not a bad idea to put your hands out as wide as you possibly can on the handle. That will give you just that little bit more stability when you are boosting it and sending it way into the flats. So you have to get onto your edge really quickly. So you're real far out, get onto your heel edge as quick as you possibly can, and it's very much just leaning against the rope and just digging that heel in as much as you possibly can. But the key here is to stay in control. Okay? Those legs are going to be in fine condition because of all that hard work that you've been putting into this. When you load that line, you're almost going to drop your ass. So your ass is going to go pretty much like right down to the water. Your knees are going to be bent, and you're hopefully going to be absolutely at your fastest speed on that cut. Arms are out straight, you're leaning against that rope, something shocking. And when you come to the base of the wake, this is going to be the thing that will either make it a beautiful, massive, sending it floaty, massive as straight air, whatever you want to do, into the flats, or it's going to be an absolute disaster. But let's not go there. So once you get to that base of the wake, the key thing here is you have to hold your shape. You've got to hold your form. Now you don't want to flatten off your board too much. You can a little bit, but if you flatten it off too much, you'll get yourself out of the wrong shape, and all that speed and momentum and line tension will do funny things when you get into the ear, and it could end in tears. So you're loading the line, something shocking. You've got your heels dug in, you get to that trough just before the wake, You can flatten out your board a little bit, but you got to keep the handle in the same place. You got to keep your butt down. You got to keep the shape of yourself as symmetrical or the same as what it was on the cut. Because if you change yourself too much, or if you twist your shoulders, or you do anything weird like that, when you get into the air, you could twist and completely destroy yourself, basically. When you get to the base of the weight, now this may not be technically correct, don't really care because this is what works for me. You flatten that board out, and you really want to just compress down, and all that tension and all that pressure and all that excuse me, all of that energy that is stored up from your cut will hopefully send you up and out and way into the flats, because you've got a lot of momentum and speed. So I will press down basically, and it's almost like doing not an ollie, but you're really absorbing the trough of that wake. And when you get to the top, you don't have to so much do the standing tall thing, because you've got all of that energy and momentum behind you already from your massive as cut. You really want to try and ride up the face of that wake, staying in the right position, but still flattening off and letting the power in your legs push you up and out. When you get into the air, I'll often grab the board on the nose, or sometimes a melon, just depends what I'm feeling at the time. But often I find when I grab the board when I grab the nose of the board and I've got my right hand still on the handle, that's almost like it's like your handle. It's like a stability. It's almost the thing that's holding you in the right body position. It's personal preference. Some people might just prefer to do the old straight air. It's up to you. So you're boosting, you're now flying over top of the second wake, and you're realizing, shit, this is now a seriously good looking massive air, because you're floating it way out into the flats. When you're coming into land, because you're landing in the flats, it's so important to absorb it in your knees. Big bit of advice, don't compress at the waist, because that's going to be a whole lot of pressure going onto your lower back. That's how you're going to injure yourself. That's how you're going to wake up the next morning feeling rather stiff and not too flash. So really absorb it, bend it in both knees, try and land with even weight, and then hopefully you'll be way out in the flats and you would have just stuck this massive as trick. But I encourage you, in fact I urge you, to go and pretty much ride and get as huge an air, go as massive as you possibly can, because there's nothing against going wake to wake, and I've probably had to learn to adapt my riding style and go a little bit more wake to wake in recent years, just because my knees are getting old, getting all creaky. But don't be afraid to send it way in the flats, load that line, just put as much emphasis as you can into hopefully going as big and floaty and massive as you possibly can. And then it's going to be something that'll turn the heads of the people on the beach. They want to see people going massive. So give it a crack, and hopefully those little few tips and little bit of advice will help you in the long run. If you need any help with that, or if you have got any questions whatsoever, get in touch. So that's today's video about how to go massive. Hopefully that has helped you, and I will see you in the next one, which I don't know when it will be or what it will be on. Later.